Sometimes history is stranger than fiction, and sometimes we fictionalize strange history to make money at the box office. All the Money in the World has made headlines, from reshooting Kevin Spacey's role, who's now living as a gay man, being an Oscar buzz film, and being the latest victim of the left's sanctimonious judgment. Communist. But I will cover all the drama in the next Pure Hollywood. For now, let's take a look at the real-life drama, All the Money in the World. All the Money in the World was directed by powerhouse director Ridley Scott. The budget has not been released, but I imagine it's gone up recently, and has grossed just under $40 million worldwide. Spoilers ahead. Now my viewer review is going to be a 3 out of 5. This movie will be interesting if the subject actually interests you. If you're interested in the lore, the crime drama, the Gettys themselves, this movie will entertain you a bit. However, it is definitely too long and it is bogged down with a few random family scenes that didn't need to be there. A lot of just the family drama that is boring gets wrapped up in the crime thriller drama that is this unbelievable real-life account of the Getty kidnappings in 1970. However, most of the drama isn't with the Getty's biological children. His son, Getty Jr., pretty much disappears, and his wife, played by Michelle Williams, goes back and forth arguing with her father-in-law. There is also a pretty big lack of character arc. There's a few characters that are dynamic that change a bit, including Mark Wahlberg's character, as well as one of the kidnappers that I love, but because of the lack of change in characters and the lack of emotional change throughout the movie, it does feel a bit flat, especially with this over 2-hour runtime. The movie kind of putters along, especially in the second half. Critically, I will give this movie a 4 out of 5. Yes, this movie did lack some entertainment elements that I really wanted them to dig into, especially focusing on the crime itself and being more in that world and not so much just the family bickering. But the film was carried by several very good performances that are already nominated, including Christopher Plummer, who replaced Kevin Spacey, who is now living as a gay man. They cast Christopher Plummer and reshot every single scene in 10 days so they could get it still within its release date. And thank goodness for the reshoot, because if not, the first 25 minutes would have been literally unbearable to watch Kevin Spacey play Paul Getty bonding with his grandson for like half an hour. It would have been awful. Mark Wahlberg and Michelle Williams both gave rousing performances as well. However, I do not feel like their roles were going to be Oscar-nominated worthy performances. But there is still someone who I think should get an Oscar nod this year. Romain Duris, who plays one of the captors who kidnap J. Paul Getty III, and throughout the movie he is absolutely entertaining to watch the entire time. It was great to watch this performance that I was not looking for because there's all these named stars and all the drama going on with certain actors in the movie. So when I actually got to watch him, it was really, really fascinating. I do hope he gets an Oscar nod this year. Now I'm going to get into a little bit of the history and also why I was confused with some of the choices that Ridley Scott made, who I do love. And I'm a huge fan of many of his awesome films, but this one is a bit lackluster if you've seen his previous work. I was also kind of confused at a few of the story choices, including the way they portrayed J. Paul Getty III in the movie. He is an angel child and absolutely lovely the entire time, so it's like there's no growth or change in his character. In real life, J. Paul Getty III had a lot of problems. In real life, J. Paul Getty III was living the bohemian life, frequenting nightclubs, and taking part in many left-wing demonstrations. That's right, he's basically an Antifa member back in the day. And he did mention to a lot of his friends who were communist revolutionaries that he could kidnap himself and extort this money. They even talked about it with multiple different people, which is why the cops were confused when they were doing their original investigation. He had an extreme drug problem even after his release and getting back in the real world. He suffered a crippling overdose with a cocktail of drugs in New York in the 80s. This left him paralyzed to a wheelchair until the day he died in 2011. Also in the movie, J. Paul Getty III's father, J. Paul Getty Jr., was completely taken out of the movie. Now in real life, Jay Getty was the one that was talking with his father, trying to negotiate the money. He did not have the $17 million, but after talking the kidnappers down, was able to put up the $2 million and took out a loan from his father for the other $1 million with 4% interest. Now why I think this is important is because you could have had a much better arc, I believe, with these characters if you shown them the way they really were. If you had this maverick, bohemian, club life grandson who had never known anything different kidnapped, you could have seen this crazy arc and realization that could have happened with him as he goes from this lavish world and lifestyle down to the grit of being kidnapped in the woods for like 3 months. I mean, you could imagine that just shocking reality as you go from living as a king to being a prisoner. Also, the estranged relationship would have been a bit more interesting, I do believe, between Jay Getty Jr. and his father, and not Michelle Williams' character. But it was still a good movie and will still be nominated for a few award shows and categories coming up. Faith and Values, I'm gonna give this movie a 4 out of 5. There are many lessons to be learned from a film and this story like this. In this movie, it does show the fruits of hard work and frivolous living. From a biblical perspective, we know that the person given 10 talents who makes 10 more will be given the 1 talent that was given to one person who didn't do anything with it. And I was also glad they didn't just focus on demonizing capitalism and condemn people who are wealthy. They also show people who are communist revolutionaries who are also very greedy and selfish. And they are. Money itself is not evil, it is what you do with it and what it means to you. And now there is plenty of other drama to talk about, but the genesis of most people's problems goes back to this: fatherhood. The lack of fatherhood and a father figure in today's society has ravaged many countries and is a crucial part of biblical truth. The Bible says, train up a child in the way that he should go, so that even when he is old, he will not depart from it. Ephesians 6:4 also says, fathers, do not provoke your children to anger, but bring them up in discipline and instruction of the Lord. And you see the effects of the misuse or lack of fatherhood strung out in each of these characters. Paul Getty's father was a harsh man who said he would never really become anything. J. Paul Getty Jr. suffered as an alcoholic, drug addict, as well as dealing with many bouts of depression because of the lack of a father figure, feeling neglected. J. Paul Getty III fell the most, basically growing up in entitlement and becoming an Antifa member in Europe. Obviously, you can see a theme here of money not being able to buy you happiness. J. Paul Getty, the richest man in the world at the time, knew that the money was going to destroy his family and almost destroyed him growing up. He tried to keep the money from him. He was also a very frivolous man as well and wanted to keep it from everybody. However, this one quote really does give you insight into what he really felt, what he knew had value. J. Paul Getty said in an interview, "I hate and regret the failure of my marriages. I would gladly give all of my millions to have one lasting marital success," unquote. It would seem he knew the poison of what that kind of wealth could bring, and wanted the one thing you could not buy: a purpose-filled life. What is it to gain the entire world and lose your soul? I'm Ben Davies, this is Pure Hollywood. Alright, if you like this video and others like it, please consider becoming a premium member to The Rebel. That way you'll have first access to Pure Hollywood and the entire Rebel lineup.